Well, it's been a pretty appalling couple of days. Violence on the streets of this country that we haven't seen for a very long time. Yes, we had the riots in 2011, which were exercises in mass looting, but this is very, very different. Let's be clear. Thugs setting fire to hotels, migrant hotels with people in them, is just wrong at every level. I understand the frustrations. I understand the anger that is felt by huge numbers of people, but I do not support street protest, violence or thuggery in any way. And that's why for 30 years I've fought elections, because I believe that democracy is the peaceful way to solve problems. And as for the Tommy Robinsons and those that genuinely do stir up hatred, well, I've never had anything to do with them. In fact, I was the one person above all that got rid of the BNP as an electoral threat. So as for what is being said by the Anna Soubries of this world, the Andy McDonalds from Labour of this world, the accusation that somehow I'm orchestrating these riots, nothing could be further from the truth. We've even got national broadcasters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. This is unfair, untrue, and actually it's directly inciting violence against me. Indeed, over the weekend, I've had to have a massive uplift in personal security. And that's been advised by government agencies. So all this peace and love that we hear from those on the left simply isn't true. The Prime Minister has misread this completely and utterly. Just to call out the actions of the far right is to misunderstand two things. Firstly, let's be clear, there were masked Muslim extremist mobs, some with weapons, going around the streets of Midlands and northern cities, threatening journalists literally running away. Indeed, in some cases, people even having their tyres on their cars slashed. So of course, as with every major conflict in life, there is fault, serious fault on both sides. But behind the extremes of both, what Starmer doesn't understand, and when he says, I'm going to stop the far right, what he doesn't understand is the general feeling of dissatisfaction that has been out there in this country growing for years. I talked in the general election about societal breakdown. What I meant by that were communities being split apart, people not even recognising the centres of some of our towns and cities as even being vaguely English anymore. And when it comes to the issue of two-tier policing, something which Keir Starmer denies, I promise you this perception began back at the time of Black Lives Matter. Remember Churchill's statue being defaced, the cenotaph being abused in central London. And the police response? They knelt down in the street and took the knee to a Marxist organisation that wants to bring down Western civilization. And it goes on and on from there. Compare the policing to the riots in Leeds with the policing that happened at Southport. And look, I am not having a go at individual men and women serving as police officers. I'm appalled that so many have been very badly hurt over the course of the last few weeks. I'm talking about the direction of policing. Is it any wonder that the boss of the Met, Sir Mark Rowley, brushed away a microphone yesterday when he was asked about two-tier policing? Priti Patel, you're wrong on this. Keir Starmer, you're wrong on this. Most of us think that ethnic minority groups are policed entirely differently to that of white British people. Folks, that is what the country feels, that is what the country thinks, and there is evidence to back it up. We can quell these riots, of course we can. We can use force, we can put people in prison. After all, there's lots of room in the prisons now, after we've let so many people out. We can do all of those things. We can bring the army in if we absolutely need to. We can stop the riots in the short term, but, and here's the important thing, do we want to deal with the symptom that we're seeing today or solve the problem? Dealing with the symptom will turn us into France, where these flare-ups, these racial tensions between the Muslim community and the French right flare up month after month, year after year, leaving big parts of Marseille and Paris effectively no-go zones. Is that what we want? Or do we want to actually solve the problem? And I believe we can solve the problem. We need to end mass immigration now, to send a message to people. We understand that a 10 million population increase has put massive pressure on people's lives. We need to deal with the young men, undocumented young males, crossing the English Channel. Just today we learn that the Labour government are going to close down the hotels, close down the RAF camps like Wethersfield and Scampton, close down, as we learned last week, the Bibby Stockholm. They're going to put all these people now into government and private rented accommodation. So if your kids are trying to buy a house, trying to rent a house, or trying to get onto a social housing list, they've now been put even further to the back of the queue. Do you think that is going to solve any of these tensions, any of these problems? I promise you that it won't. We have to be clear that whilst we've always been open to genuine refugees, no one that crosses the English Channel trafficked in a small dinghy will ever get refugee status. And thirdly, we absolutely need to get all the police chiefs around the whole of the United Kingdom together and to say to them, start policing even-handedly. Treat everybody in Britain and be colourblind, absolutely colourblind. If you're operating stop and search in an area that happens to have a higher black population, remember, most of those that are being murdered are black. End this constant discrimination. End this diversity agenda. Treat everybody in Britain equally. And if we do those things, we'll remove many of the underlying tensions that exist in our country. And I put that to Sir Keir Starmer as a challenge. We're not even 100 days in to this first Labour government in 14 years. Remember, of course, he doesn't have much legitimacy anyway. The party only got 33.8% of those that voted. Only 20% of the eligible electorate put this man in power. He needs to start listening to the people, and the vast majority of people are decent, are law-abiding, support British values, believe that this is a great country, as I do, but are fearful. Fearful for the future, the integrity of family, community, and nation. And I really believe we're at quite a perilous point. If we allow all of those things that we've built, defended over centuries, if we allow all of those things to come under threat, then we are in very, very big trouble. We will decline down the order of countries in this world. And remember, we're envied by most of the world. Our form of democratic government, the way we've always organised ourselves. It's one of the reasons why so many people actually want to come here. There are many, many good things about us. So look, of course we must deal with violence wherever it comes from and deal with it ruthlessly. But please, Prime Minister, don't use the narrative that anybody that is concerned about excess immigration, about illegal immigration, about population explosion, about change in our communities, do not allow them to think they're what you're calling far right, because I tell you what, they're not.